Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 29, Krishna and the Gopis meet for the last dance. Text number 12 onwards. So yesterday we discussed how listening to Krishna's flute, which he was playing from Banshivat, all the gopis ran towards him in the middle of the night. Whatever they were doing at home, they just left everything and ran. Few devotees, a few gopis could not go, their husbands or their fathers. They stopped them and they basically left their bodies and they went inside and they just meditated on Krishna. But the gopis ran towards Krishna. So one thing is, as we studied, gopis' love for Krishna is considered the topmost. There's nothing better, more than that. So when they ran, I mean, why is it considered the topmost? The reason being, when I was listening to a lecture, it is said that because of their full surrender. Well, what was the surrender? They ran in the middle of the night towards Krishna, listening to his flute to give him pleasure, although they didn't even consider or they knew they would not be welcome back in their homes. Paramore love, to have somebody other than your husband in life for a married woman is in material world, it's considered the very abominable. And for a lady, a married lady, the first thing is family and the security the family gives. But these gopis, they just dropped everything. And for what? It wasn't that they wanted to be pleased. It was that they wanted to please Krishna. Krishna is calling us. So that is why these gopis' love for Krishna, their conjugal mood is considered the topmost. They didn't care for themselves at all. And later on also, when Narad Muni goes to Dwarka and comes to Vrindavan, the beautiful pastime, there also it is shown how the gopis of Vrindavan, their love for Krishna is the topmost. I mean, they didn't even care for themselves, whether they will be outcast from the family, from the society. They don't know where they're going to live, because meeting Krishna means what? Just for a few hours maybe, and then Krishna would go back to his house in Nandagaon. But these gopis, they didn't even consider what will happen to us afterwards. Because normally, if a married woman goes in the middle of the night when husband is trying to stop, or father is there, or brothers are there, what will happen when they come back? Look at what happened to that washer's wife during Ram Leela. She was stuck because of severe weather. And this washerman, he would not even accept her back. He said, I don't know, but where were you? I'm not like Ram, who accepted Sita back even after 1 year when she was in Ravan's kingdom. So these gopis, they just didn't care whether they were whether they will be welcomed back or not, or what will happen to them. They didn't care. They just wanted to give pleasure to Krishna. Very, very high sentiments. Full surrender, which is called. That's in this gopis. To serve Krishna, to give him pleasure. Now, how do we involve that or absorb that in our lives? Of course, we are not like gopis. We cannot imitate gopis. That will be called sentimentalism, sahajiya. We are not sahajiyas. So for us, our devotional service, whichever level we are at, we make progress, take baby steps, and we make progress slowly. So our devotional services, we need to chant our rounds, try to do that first thing in the morning, and whatever reading and other services. So because Krishna wants us to these services through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given these instructions to his disciples, followers, and from them come the instructions through Srila Prabhupada to us. Means if we do these services, no matter what happens, of course, nobody is going to kick us out of our homes if we are chanting. Hopefully not. Point is, this will give pleasure to Krishna if our consciousness is getting purified or we are getting eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. This will give pleasure to Krishna. So for that, for his pleasure, we have to put our bhakti, which is right now our sadhana bhakti. Vedhi, sadhana, Vedhi means following the rules and regulations, sadhana bhakti in the forefront of everything. Sometimes we will be ridiculed, sometimes there will be some other obstacles in performing our sadhana. But looking or just thinking of the full surrender of the gopis, what they would be going through after they come back. And even Krishna will test them there also. We'll study. But their full surrender. It's just amazing. Cannot even imagine. So for Krishna's pleasure, even if it gives a momentary pleasure to Krishna, gopis they said, we are ready to go to hell, to live in hell eternally. If it means it will give even a moment's pleasure to Krishna. That's very, very high sentiment, very, very high form of devotion. They're not through the lusty feelings or materially lusty feelings that we think of. There's no lust. As we studied, it was all under Yoga Maya. Nothing Mahamaya, no illusion was there. And how they went, somebody was putting makeup, she forgot how to put properly and she left. Somebody was milking the cow, somebody was feeding babies. For a mother, feeding babies is a topmost service. Because she can forget everything. She cannot forget feeding the baby at the right time. She left her baby. Somebody was milking the cows. She even left the pot under the udder of cow and left. Somebody was cooking. There was milk on the stove, or there were other things on the stove. She just left. Then it's not sentimentalism. in material world, it could be sentimentalism, or it could be because of some lusty desires. If girls or ladies do that, but not when it comes to Krishna. So very, very high sentiment, high emotions, very high devotion. And although it's not in Bhagavatam, it comes in other literature from Goswamis. When we study about Srimati Radharani's feelings or what she does for the pleasure of Krishna, that's just mind-boggling. It just cannot even conceive of that, what she does. But that's why Srimati Radharani is what Srimati Radharani is. All we can pray for, of course, we cannot pray for those kind of emotions. All we can pray for, oh Radharani, please engage me in your service. Whatever service you want me to give to serve Krishna, you through Srila Prabhupada, following his leadership, just please engage me in your service. That's all. Whatever you want. And in fact, that is the meaning of Hare Krishna Mahamantra that Prabhupada told us. Oh, Radharani, oh Krishna, please engage me in your service. That's all. So this is basically to hear these pastimes with the right frame of mind. Krishna's babyhood pastimes or his other demon-killing pastimes, of course, we hear it in the proper frame of mind. Sometimes we do have some questions, some doubts. How can Krishna do this and how can... But those pastimes still we can understand. But Gopi's pastimes, very, very confidential. And that's why we got to have the proper frame of mind when we hear these pastimes. Text 12. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Krishnam Viduh Param Kantam Natu Brahmataya Mune Guna Pravaho Paramas Tasam Guna Dhyam Katham. Shri Parikshit Maharaj said, O sage, the gopis knew Krishna only as a lover, not as the supreme absolute truth. So how could these girls, their minds caught up in the waves of the modes of nature, free themselves from material attachment? King Parikshit was sitting in an assembly of great sages and other important personalities, listening to the words of Shukdev Goswami. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as Shukdev Goswami began speaking of the gopis' conjugal love for Krishna, the king noticed the expressions on the faces of some of the more materialistic persons present there and realized the doubts lurking in their hearts. Therefore, although the king thoroughly knew the purport of Shukdev's words, he presented himself as experiencing personal doubt so that he could eradicate the doubt of others. That is why he asked this question. What was the question? Gopis knew Krishna only as a lover, not as Supreme Personality of Godhead or Supreme Absolute Truth. So how could these girls, their minds caught up in the waves of the modes of nature, free themselves from material attachment? Of course, their minds are not caught up in the waves of modes of nature. And even if they consider Krishna as a lover, Krishna is the Supreme Absolute Truth. But let's see what Shukdev Goswami says. Shri Shukavacha Uktam Purastate Tate Chadya Siddhim Ita Gataha Dushannapi Rishikesham Kimuta Dhokshaj Priyaha. Shukdev Goswami said, this point was explained to you previously. That's the job of a guru. Little chastisement is there. How did you forget? We explained this point. Of course, there are so many things going on in Bhagavatam, and Parikshit Maharaj is trying to put his attention. Obviously, in previous verse, as I said, he was asking question on behalf of other sages who might have some doubts. So Shukdev Goswami said, this point was explained to you previously. Since even Shishupal, who hated Krishna, achieved perfection. Shishupal didn't think of Krishna as supreme absolute truth. He hated him. He thought of him out of envy or out of anger. But still he achieved perfection. Then what to speak of Lord's dear devotees? Whichever way they think of Krishna, they still get perfected. Although the spiritual nature of conditioned souls may be covered by illusion, Lord Krishna's spiritual nature is omnipotent and is never covered by any other power. In fact, all other powers are his energy and thus function according to his will. Brahm Samhita states, Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti. The mighty Durga who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material worlds is a potency of the Supreme Lord, and she moves like his shadow according to his desire. Thus, because the Lord's spiritual influence does not depend on whether someone understands him or not, the gopis' spontaneous love for Krishna guaranteed their spiritual perfection. So whether we understand or not, but Krishna is the supreme personality of God. Just like whether we understand that if we touch an electric wire with current flowing through it, it's going to give us a shock, or whether we know it or not, if we touch it, it's going to give us a shock. But gopis, their love for Krishna was not for supreme absolute truth. It was completely out of just without any tinge of material desire. They just wanted to serve Krishna, please Krishna. So this was their status of love. So Shishupal, he thought of Krishna, he got purified. But to speak of gopis, who wanted to serve Krishna, please Krishna, not out of envy or fear or anger, out of love. The great Madhvacharya quotes the following relevant passages from the Skanda Purana. At that time, the gopis who desired Krishna gave up their bodies and went to the spiritual world because they properly understood Krishna to be the supreme absolute truth. They transcended the influence of time. In the previous lives, most of the gopis were already fully endowed with transcendental knowledge. It's because of this knowledge, not their lust, that they were able to attain the supreme Brahman. The Vedas declare that without spiritual knowledge, there is no valid path to liberation, because these apparently lusty gopis possessed devotion and knowledge, they achieved liberation. Thus, even in the attainment of liberation, lust followed as a manifestation of the pure devotion. After all, what we call liberation was experienced even by the envious persons like Shishupal. So it was so-called lust, but actually it was complete, pure love. By the mercy of Lord Vishnu, one who follows the path of devotional service gains liberation as a byproduct, and such a person's lusty desire, which would normally invoke misfortune, instead invokes the mercy of Vishnu when exhibited in pure devotion. Lord Vishnu will save even a devotee possessed of an envious life. Just see the extreme mercy of the Lord as shown by his granting liberation to Shishupal. So what to speak of gopis? They are so pure. Shishupal was Lord Krishna's cousin. He was mortified when the Lord stole the gorgeous young Rukmini, whom Shishupal himself was hell-bent on marrying. For various other reasons also, Shishupal was consumed with envy of Lord Krishna. Finally, he insanely offended him in a great assembly called the Rajasuya sacrifice. At that time, Krishna nonchalantly cut off Shishupal's head and gave him liberation. Everyone present saw the effulgent soul of Shishupal rise out of his dead body and merge into the existence of the Lord. The seventh canto explains that Shishupal was an incarnation of a gatekeeper in the spiritual world, cursed to take birth on the earth as a demon. Since even Shishupal was liberated by the Lord, who took into consideration the whole situation, then what to speak of gopis who loved Krishna more than anything else? So Shukdev Goswami is clearing the doubts of Parikshit Maharaj and everybody, all the other sages also. See, all the sages who were assembled there, not everybody had the same qualification, same mood, same surrender as Parikshit Maharaj. And that is one of the reasons Shukdev Goswami did not take the names of gopis, especially Srimati Radharani in whole Srimad Bhagavatam. He always said gopi. Because some of those sages there, they were not qualified to even hear the name of Radharani. They could have misunderstood. And also another reason was Shukdev Goswami, because he is a servant, pet parrot of Srimati Radharani. By taking the name of his mistress, he would have gone into trance for 6 months. He knew that. And Parikshit Maharaj had only 7 days. So he didn't want to take the name of Radharani because of so much of loving service attitude towards Radharani. He would have gone into trance. And that would have disturbed the whole thing. So he purposefully avoided taking the name. And also because sages were not qualified, some of the sages were not qualified. So how much one should be careful when speaking on these confidential matters. Nrinam nishre sarthaya vyaktir bhagavato nripa avyayasya prameyasya nirgunasya brahmana. O King, the Supreme Lord is inexhaustible and immeasurable, and he is untouched by the material modes because he is their controller. His personal appearance in this world is meant for bestowing the highest benefit on humanity. Since Lord Krishna descends to benefit mankind in general, why would he neglect innocent young girls who loved him more than anyone else did? Although the Lord awards himself to his pure devotees, he is avyaya, inexhaustible, because he is aprameya, immeasurable. He is also nirguna, free of material qualities, and thus those who intimately associate with him are on the same spiritual platform. He is Gunatma, the controller or original personality behind the modes of nature. And it's specifically for this reason that he is free of them. In other words, because the modes of nature are his energy, they cannot act upon him. So he is beyond the modes of nature. He is completely spiritual, transcendental, and so are his pastimes, and so are his devotees. And this shloka and next shloka is very important. 15. Kamam krodham bhayam sneham ekyam sohritam evacha nityam haro vidadhato yanti tanmayatam hite. Persons who constantly direct their lust, anger, fear, protective affection, feeling of impersonal oneness or friendship toward Lord Hari are sure to become absorbed in thought of him. So whatever feelings we have, all we have to do is just direct it towards Krishna. Kamam also. So we can, even if somebody says gopis had lusty feelings, obviously they didn't have the material lust, but spiritually, of course, the pure lust is there, and that's why in material world we have the perverted reflection of that lust. But everything towards Krishna, and Krishna accepts everything. Lord Krishna is pure spiritual existence, and those who somehow or other become attached to him, absorbed in thoughts of him, rise to the spiritual platform. This is the absolute nature of the Lord's personal association. With this verse, Shukdev Goswami answers King Parikshit's question about the gopis. After all, Shukdev has begun to narrate Krishna's most intimate pastime, the Ras dance, and Parikshit is cooperating to remove the doubts of others who are hearing or who in the future may hear this astonishing story. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted a statement from the Skanda Puran that emphatically declares persons like the gopis to be liberated souls beyond the pale of material illusion. So it says, eternal conjugal attraction to Krishna expressed in pure devotional service cannot develop in one who is not already liberated. Thus, those who are devoted to Lord Hari, even in conjugal attraction, are already liberated. And then only they can have this kind of attraction. Otherwise, it's not possible. Srila Madhvacharya then quotes from Padma Puran to clarify the essential point that one cannot be liberated simply by lusting after Lord Krishna, but rather only by possessing conjugal attraction in pure devotional service. Huge difference. But the professional reciters of Bhagavatam, Katha, they don't understand all this and they just mislead the public. In name of Ras Leela, in name of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, they just bring out so much of nonsense that it brings down the position of Krishna and the position of the gopis. Actually, the time is up, but there is still more purport. So I think we'll stop here and we'll take it up from this point onwards tomorrow. And see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble
Krishna.
respect. I think this whole purport is beyond our perception or understanding, Prabhuji. This is so deep.
I
We are
know, but that's why we have to have the right understanding, even to whatever extent.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So we don't mistake position of gopis.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Manta.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Manta.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna.